Hi, welcome back to the workshop for the 6th and penultimate episode in my Great Guitar Build Off 2021 series. Anyone who follows the channel will look at the backdrop and have a very good understanding of what's going to happen in this episode, but for those of you that don't, I've basically put the plastic up because it's time to spray some finish onto this guitar. Now, I've done quite a lot of work on this guitar off camera since the last episode because I'm simply running so tight against the deadline that I'm going to struggle to get it done otherwise. So all the fret work has been done and a few other little bits and pieces. However, before I get started on the finishing, there is still one last little job to do. Now, you might remember a few weeks ago I glued a veneer onto the front of the headstock, and in doing so I kind of covered up the truss rod access. So it's now time to dig that out. But before I cut out for the truss rod access, I actually need to make the cover, so I've got something to shape it to. So to get going, I made a paper pattern. I then mounted that to an offcut of rosewood. I want to continue the theme of the rosewood fretboard onto the headstock. Next, I use the cover to mark out the shape on the headstock before removing the waste with a chisel. I've gone down about 2mm here. I want this to be a nice tight interference fit so that the truss rod cover will just push into the hole. I then put a bevel onto the edge of the cover before carving some relief into it. And finally, just giving it a bit of a sand. Okay, time to start thinking about getting some finish on this thing, and as we know, time is a bit tight, so my plan is the back of the guitar and the neck and the back of the headstock is all going to be done in satin clear lacquer. A couple of reasons. Firstly, it will give the back of the neck a nice smooth playable feel, but it also means that I've got to put less effort into finishing the lacquer once it's on, which is great. But the top is going to be gloss, but it's not really very evident at the moment, but there is a little bit of flame in this top. So I'm going to backstain this. And for those of you who aren't familiar with backstaining, basically it's staining the wood a dark colour, sanding it back so that only the stain that's in the figure in the wood remains, and then you stain on top of it the colour that you actually want it to be. And what that will do will really accentuate the figure in this wood. So I'm going to do this whole top surface like that. The edge of the maple I'm going to leave white for now, just to see what it looks like. It might look daft and I might do something more with it later on, but for now I'm going to leave it plain. So the first thing I need to do is just get some masking tape around the top and protect the bits I don't want staining while I'm doing the top surface. Okay, so that's the taping up done. I've tried to get it down as best I can. It might lift up. We can always scrape back if we do get a bit of stain where we don't need it, but the less we have to do, the better. Right, let's get some stain. Okay, so it's time to let the cat out of the bag in terms of what the finish is going to be. Now, quite often when people are backstaining, they will use a black dye to accentuate the figure. The problem with that is sometimes if you don't sand it all out properly, it leaves it looking a bit dark and muddy. And in this particular instance, this central section is a veneer, and I don't really want to be rubbing too much on that. So if I use black, there is a chance that I might rub through the veneer. So what I'm actually going to use is, this is some rosewood coloured stain, which is going to leave it a browny red colour in the figure in the wood, because that is going to turn the darker bits of the top a kind of a purpley colour, because I'm going to be using royal blue on the top of this guitar. Now there is a chance, once I've got this staining done and I've got a few coats of lacquer on, that I might actually run a very subtle black burst around the edge as well. But for now, I'm just going to concentrate on getting this rosewood dye on. Okay, so that's the stain on. As you can see, that's brought out the figure. It's not a massively flamey top, but there is a little bit of flame in there, so I think it will look quite nice once we get the actual colour onto it. So what I'll do now is I'll leave this for 20 minutes or so until it dries up, and then I'll take the masking off and we can sand this back. Okay, that's turned out better than I thought it would. The masking tape really did keep it where I needed it. So it's just a case now of getting a 320 pad, which is quite a smooth pad, and then just rubbing all of this back off again. So that's all rubbed off again. Seems like an awful lot of effort just to be left with this kind of little bit of patterning, but it will make a real difference when we put the actual stain onto it. So I'm going to mask this up again off camera because it's going to take ages, and we'll get back with some stain. Okay, so that's all masked up again, ready to go. So time to see what it looks like with a bit of blue on. I hope it looks good, because I really don't want to sand this all off again. Okay, so that's had 3 coats of stain. It's looking quite nice, quite like that. So I'm just going to get the masking off this now and leave it overnight to dry, and then I might just have to give it a final touching coat in certain places where it's looking a little bit on the light side. But we'll just see what it dries like first. Okay, so got the staining all done. I've done a little bit more prep work just to kind of get it all ready, and it's all masked off, ready to get sprayed up. The biggest difficulty I had was around these horn areas. There isn't any kind of clear line to differentiate where I want blue from where I want just maple, like there is around the rest of the body. So what I've tried to do is just to kind of blend it in so I get a subtle fade from the blue into the maple. How well that's going to work, we'll have to just wait and see. This all looks quite kind of flat and dull and horrible at the moment. I think that's just the way that the blue stain has dried. We'll hit it with a coat of lacquer and just see if that brings it up a little bit. I've kind of put a little bit of a burst in around the edge just with some stains. We'll see what that looks like when we get the lacquer on. If it doesn't look how I want it to look, I will then kind of just introduce some black lacquer into the job to touch that in. And also I haven't really decided whether I want the gloss to continue from the top around here onto the maple, or whether I want all of the maple that's not blue to be kind of the matte finish that the back of the guitar is going to be. So I'm going to spray this all with a gloss for the time being, and then I can make my choice once that's dried and I've got a better idea of what it looks like. Okay, so this has had about 6 coats of lacquer now. I'll see if I can get some reflections in the top. So that's not bad. Out of the gun in my little workshop, there's a lot of overspray, so it's not a brilliant environment for spraying in. But I think that's looking quite nice. Quite happy with that. It's really brought the flame out in this body. It's not massively flamey, but it does look quite pretty, and the headstock as well. So happy with that so far. I'm going to demask it now and then let it dry overnight, and then I can look at masking it up again and making a decision where I'm going to do this satin finish to. But so far, so good. Okay, so it's the next night. The gloss lacquer on the top has cured nicely. So I've masked that all off, and I'm just going to give all of the back and the neck and the rest of the sides a couple of coats of clear satin lacquer. So it's a nitrocellulose lacquer, the same as the top, the only difference being this is satin instead of gloss. I'm going to give it 2 very quick coats, and then as soon as that's flashed off and it's dry enough to touch, I'm going to take all this masking off, because I'm a little bit wary of masking this gloss lacquer up quite so quickly. But the deadline is approaching very, very rapidly at the moment, so I can't afford to mess around. Okay, so there we go. That's all the finishing pretty much done for now. Top's looking really nice, I think. Let me know in the comments what you think. And I think the headstock's looking very nice as well. I'm happy I've gone with this shape now. And I think that truss rod cover works nicely too. And it's a nice tight interference fit. I think that's going to look really, really nice when it's oiled up and looks a bit darker. So we are getting closer, but there's still quite a lot of work to do. I need to sort out all the electrics, which of course means I'm going to have to fish all the controls into that hidden cavity, which might or might not be an easy job. There's all the general assembly work to do, but I can't really do any of that until I've flatted and polished the top. And realistically, I can't do that just yet. This paint will still be very, very soft, so I can't really go at it for a few days yet. However, it is the 23rd today. The deadline is the 30th. I've got a week, so I can't really leave it too long. So I'm going to be back very, very shortly with the final episode in this series. Don't forget, if you've enjoyed this, leave me a like. If you haven't already done so, subscribe to the channel, and I'll look forward to seeing you very, very soon. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye bye.